Welcome to another episode of the Whiskey Jug. My name is Josh, and today we're doing the last class review of the Roughstock Montana Pure Malt. Good stuff. Now, I reviewed this one, or did the first review a couple months ago, and the link to that is down below in the description for the video here. So if you want to check that out, you can see the original on there, all my original thoughts. And yeah, no sense beating around bush. Let's just get right to it. So on the nose, you get there's a lot of the barley, alfalfa, hay, different things like that in there. Some little dessert notes floating about, vanilla, some little bit of molasses, and even just a little bit of tropical fruit, kind of like bananas, especially floating around in there. Now, looking back over my notes and comparing them, this to back when I first opened it, the fruity notes have opened up a lot more. That's the biggest thing that I've noticed, is really that over the point in time from opening until empty, that it's the fruit notes have become a lot more prominent than they were initially, because initially it was just a lot of really big earthy grains, and that's what really overpowered on the nose. Now for a taste. Same thing on the palate. This is a whiskey that is very consistent from nose to palate to finish. You get same thing, a lot of the big grain, the barley, the alfalfa, hay. You get a lot of grainy notes through that. Very earthy, very rich. Same thing with those vanilla, molasses, and kind of tropical, fruity banana notes that come in. And then on the finish, it's the same thing. You've got a lot of those same notes. Nothing really changes throughout this whiskey, which does kind of make it a little bit one-dimensional, but I really feel like it makes up for it a little bit, because it is so rich and round and really, just a pleasure to drink. It's just so good. Excuse me, I've been a little bit sick lately. Just getting over it. But anyways, enough about that. That's silly stuff. One thing about this is that it is a pure malt, which this is a lot like a, thing along the lines of single malt. So it's made with 100% malted barley, and if you look here on the bottom of the label, it's actually made with 100% Montana grown barley. So Montana made, Montana water, has a nice little sticker right there, made in Montana, USA. Everything about this is Montana. So really, really fantastic showing from here. In America, we're not used to seeing a lot of whiskeys like this made in America. This has really been the domain of Scotch and Irish single malts, and whiskeys all around the world are a lot more made with 100% barley. In America, we've been really focused over the last many years is bourbon, corn-based whiskey, and rye, and especially recently rye. So seeing some more of these malt whiskeys, American single malt, things like that show up. It's only been the last couple of years they've really started popping up, and I'm not gonna lie, I was really scared about setting down $60 when I first picked up this bottle. It's something that when I first opened it, I hated. Total transparency, I really hated this whiskey when I very first opened it up. Thought it was just all I could taste was barley. But after leaving it open for a couple days, came back, had another sip, started noticing a couple more notes starting to develop in there. It was really getting to become tasty. And after about a month or so of being open, it really blossomed, and you got a lot more of the sweetness, a little bit more depth started to develop, and it started to really become much more rich. And it was just became something that I really enjoyed. It became a whiskey that I started sharing with all my friends. I wanted everyone to try, and every time they came over, like, oh my gosh, you haven't tried this? You've got to try this. And started getting a lot of people to taste and also fall in love with. So it's it's definitely grown on me. Now, onto the scoring. So, initially when I scored this whiskey, I gave it an 88, and I swear I'm gonna find a better way to do this. I still stand by that. It is what it is. It hasn't really reached that upper echelon, but when it comes down to something that is incredibly tasty, rich, round, it is a little bit missing in depth, but I forgive it because it is such a very rich flavor, and it's something I could drink every day. It's turned itself into a daily drinker, which is what those, upper 80s for me is where I start placing whiskeys that is something that I could actually come home, sip on, and just, completely relax to. That's when you're hitting that. Fantastic. It does great in cocktails. There's a recipe on the site that I used a cocktail, to make this, and it turned out fantastic. So it's definitely something that if you come across it, I highly recommend trying it. You're annoying. It's something that should really end up trying sometime. Now, there is one thing I do have to say about this, and it's something that just gets at me at a lot of these. It's bottling. After about a month of this being open, this little cork started to just disintegrate. This is one of the worst corks I have ever had in a bottle of whiskey. I mean, from like at least a month, all of a sudden there's like these little particles of cork showing up. Dumped it, strained it, did the whole thing, put it in, kept showing up. This thing kept shedding cork, and I don't know if you can see it, but in floating around here, there's little particles of cork just floating from this. And right before I did the video, poured myself a little into the glass to really taste it and kind of re-refresh it, get my thoughts in place and all that. But as soon as I opened it, a chunk, which came off of like right about there, of the cork just fell in. I had to fish out. So one of the worst corks, and I just hate cork. I mean, it's just a terrible material. It's not good for the planet to be harvesting all of this, and it deteriorates, it falls apart, it just is useless. I just freaking hate it. So, anyways, that's that, and this has been the review of the Roughstock Montana Pure Malt Whiskey, and that, cheers. If you ever get a chance, definitely give it a taste.